that can continue to go on and continue to give opportunities to lots of different people from all over the world. Boxing got so up that nobody could actually make a living out of it because most of the time, most of these guys in boxing will say, well, I want 40 million for that. Well, how does that make sense? Saudi Arabia had to take it over. A group of people that have so much money, they don't care whether they make or lose money. Tyson Fury versus Usyk, that's a fight that should have happened. It took Turkey to make that fight because they have unlimited funds. And because of piracy, that fight lost like $100 million or something like that. I do give a shit whether I lose money or not. We built a sustainable business that can continue to go on and continue to give opportunities to lots of different people from all over the world.
All right. Well, don't forget to like and subscribe because the day that I'm recording this is the same day that I'm going to be releasing this. And it's also the same day we got Gervonta Davis taking on Lamont Roach. Also, on this same live stream day that we're going to do, we got Manel Kape taking on Alma Bayaf, 21-2 versus Manel Kape, 20-7. In my opinion, probably the Kendrick Lamar of MMA, the Portuguese Kendrick Lamar of MMA. We're going to see how this fight pans out. But for now, we got an interesting story that I'd like to talk about. Obviously, we know about Dana White's possible boxing match back in the day against Tito Ortiz. And how did that come about? Obviously, they had animosity, beef going on, just like a lot of fighters and promoters have amongst each other, right? Different discrepancies, different ideas, different ways of going about things, different vision, all normal, right? But he was actually going to box Tito Ortiz, which leads me to the fact that Dana White's first love was boxing, and MMA just happened to be a side mission that came about in which he was the huge contributor of its entire mainstream popularity. As you can see right here, Dana White in the old UFC gym, in the old UFC offices where he was training for this fight. But it never materialized. Just like Zuffa Boxing. Zuffa Boxing was something that was an idea that was flowing around, and it never materialized. I wonder why. Right? But then here comes Turki El-Sheikh. He comes into this whole situation, and all of a sudden, it seems like anything and everything is possible. The Usyk and Tyson Fury fight was possible. Not only was that possible, it happened twice. And maybe even the third time they would have done it if different results would have varied. But on any regard, we got to ask, what will this do to fighter pay overall in boxing? Because everybody says that you make more money in boxing than you do in MMA. But what does that really mean? Does that mean that it's the undercard guys that are making more money than the undercard guys in UFC and MMA? Or is it really just the top guys who are making way more than everybody in boxing, and the top guys in MMA really don't make that much in comparison to the top guys in boxing? Well, we're going to try to explore all these different possibilities.
That he would have made more money than had he done what he did, which is to go take 2 boxing fights and ultimately sign with the PFL. Probably not, almost certainly not, but let's talk about it. Let's see what we can figure out. Why are we even talking about this? Well, UFC President Dana White spoke to the media following yesterday's Contender Series event and was asked about it as a follow-up to an interview he did with Kevin Iole. First, here's the comment he made at the Contender Series event.
Earlier today, you did an interview with Kevin, and you mentioned that it wasn't necessarily true Francis would have made more money boxing than he would have if he stayed in the UFC. Right. My question to you is, you always said, he didn't want to stick around because he didn't want to fight John Jones. Why didn't you mention the fact that he would have made more money to fight John then? It would have sort of backed up your point. Why did it take you until now to bring it up?
Because why? I don't give a shit. What's the difference?
I'm saying it's interesting for people to realize.
Because I know all the shit that you people don't know. And I don't care what everybody says. It doesn't matter to me. But that's a fact. He was offered more money. Because I know the real numbers. I know the real numbers. And let me tell you what. I don't want to call him out, but let me tell you what. He'd have done anything to make that fucking fight. And he tried to.
Now, I'm going to come back to this in just a second, but let me add to it what Dana White said to Kevin Iole. Here is the quote. I'm going to read it to you. That's not necessarily true when he was talking about whether you can make more money in boxing.
So I bought a $500 bottle of Creed Aventus because it's the world's most popular fragrance, potentially.
That's the BS publicly that people believe, but that's not the truth. Total BS, total BS. That's the whole myth that makes everybody go, oh, let's effing go to boxing and all this BS.
All right, so let's read this right here, right? Just to kind of give full context of what is going on here. That's BS publicly, people that people believe, but that's not true. Total BS. Total BS. That's the whole myth that makes everybody go, oh, let's go to effing boxing and all this BS. Boxing don't work. Boxing does not work. What makes it work is the Saudis, which is why we're here right now. And by the way, keep in mind this video that Luke Thomas made was done 4 months ago, right? Just to give it in context, October 2nd, 2024. All right, so let's continue on with this.
BS. Boxing doesn't work. Boxing does not work. What makes it work? You need a Saudi effing trillionaire to make effing fights. And even Saudi trillionaires get tired of the effing BS. It's all effing myth. It's all myth. Like the whole statement you just made, that's absolutely positively not true. It's those types of effing statements and those types of quotes by the media that makes all this S. All these fights are happening. It takes a Saudi effing trillionaire. Every effing guy that tries to go do the boxing thing, they all end up losing S loads of effing money. The model does not work. A Saudi unlimited amount of money pops up, and that's what makes these fights happen. And even guys with that kind of money get effing tired. First, let me actually give a bit of an olive leaf to Dana. While his answer to Kevin Iole is kind of weird because he ends up saying it's not necessarily true that you make more money in boxing than you would doing MMA. He ends up making kind of this promoter argument that promoters don't make the right amount of money or enough money, which is a separate argument from whether or not the fighters make money. In fact, it's a completely different argument. So I don't understand why he trailed off into that different direction, but is it true that no matter what, you'll always make more money in boxing if you're a UFC fighter and you leave to go fight in boxing? No, of course, that's not necessarily true. Case in point, Nate Diaz goes to fight Jorge Masvidal, and he has now sued Fan Mio because he didn't get basically any of the money that he was essentially.
So once again, kind of important to point out, okay, Nate Diaz files lawsuit against Fan Mio, claims that he's owed $9 million for the Jorge Masvidal fight. I remember that fight, and I remember the controversy that came about when it came to the pay that Nate Diaz was supposed to receive. Now, I got to tell you, these are not the same type of mistakes you're going to see out of the Saudis because they have trillions of dollars on deck and on their budget, if that word even exists, budget. I mean, Saudis and budget doesn't seem like two words that really go together, right? It's definitely not a peanut butter and jelly sandwich situation where you mash up these two contrasting things together and make it a fact. No. You see, everything that Dana White says about boxing, okay, a lot of them do try a going out of business style. In other words, they really try and make an effort in making the best possible card or the best possible fight that they can make, but pay everybody in the undercards way less money than what is deserved and things of that nature. And as a result, this is what you have. Okay, you have a situation where there's people that are just trying to make as much money as they can without really regarding the idea that they may lose some money into it, right? Again, the Saudis don't even think about that. So, of course, they're going to have some problems paying $9 million to Nate Diaz when they have to pay the overhead costs for this and that and things of that nature. So let's continue on with this video.
$1 million, but there's a whole lot more that they owe. And I made a video about this. You can check it out here above. You'll get the idea. So like this idea that just because you fight boxing, that the business model or every promoter out there will do business with you in a way that where your purse is naturally going to go up. This is obviously not true. So fair point. It is not necessarily true that you can make more every single time doing boxing. Boxing just means more money. But there's a couple of problems here with what Dana White said that really have to be acknowledged. Let's talk about just the basics overall. Let me show you some court documents from the UFC antitrust trial. This comes from the plaintiffs when they were cobbling together evidence for some of their claims. They come to this particular moment, and here you have quite
check this out.
in boxing, Lou DiBella, who basically note the reality of boxing is that 80% or upwards of 70% end up going to the fighter, and then the house basically takes the rest of it. I mean, it's obviously split a few more ways than that, but you get the idea. It's a 70 to 80% split with the fighters, and the UFC is the exact opposite. It's not just the case with Bob Arum. It's not just the case with Lou DiBella. In fact, they go through Golden Boy in the same document, and their numbers are pretty.
And with that, we go back just 1 month prior to that video that Luke Thomas made right here by Alex Kaylee of MMA Fighting. Mike Tyson says that Dana White is going to be the best thing to happen in boxing. Well, why is that exactly? Okay, well, Mike Tyson has been in a boxing game for a long time. He's happy to see Dana White jump in. Ahead of the Jake Paul fight, he was talking about this. So this is going to be the best thing to happen in boxing, according to Tyson. If you're in a UFC and if anybody is booing the fight, you're going to see that guy. His next fight is going to be in South Dakota somewhere. Only good fights. If you don't have a good fight, you ain't ever going to be seen again. Not like boxing. The guy's going to fight next month again, and we don't want to see that. If any fight stinks, you're not in the back in the UFC no more. You're going to see those guys again. So that's kind of what he's talking about here, right? The incentive structure that they have going on with the UFC as opposed to, let's say, boxing. Because obviously there's been a lot of complaints with people about Floyd Mayweather. Oh, well, he's not really fighting. He runs around or this and that. Or just to name a whole few different boxers that have what you would consider boring styles or whatever, right? Well, the UFC sort of operates in that same kind of matter where they kind of operate in a way where, like, you know what, if you're not performing right, if you're not doing it right, they're going to replace you. But the oversight in boxing doesn't work like that. They are only interested in making the fights the mandatory, and I'm talking about the commissions, right? Now, when it comes to the matchmaking and the production behind it, obviously all of that is dealt with by the promoters. As we know, Dana White has had some experience sort of delving into boxing. Obviously, the UFC Fight Pass fighter that he has covering all of his boxing fights, Callum Walsh. And by the way, shout out to Callum Walsh. You gave me some pretty good views just covering his fights back in the days. But if you want to check that out, I'll put it on the description below. If you want to check out that live stream, I had a whole bunch of people in Ireland pull up for that one. So that's quite interesting. So yeah, this is Dana White in a nutshell, right? He's delved into boxing, but he wants to do a little bit more than just promote one guy, which is Callum Walsh, right? Which is his guy in boxing. He wants to do a little bit more than that. He wants to cover an entire league and make great crossover fights, just like what you've seen with Francis Ngannou and Tyson Fury. And by the way, shout outs to Turki El-Sheikh, right? Because obviously this guy is the main attraction of this whole entire story. Obviously, Dana White is the whole entire focus, but really the star of this whole entire video is Turki El-Sheikh because of everything that he's made in boxing, everything that he's made for his country, all the entertainment value that they have going on. Now, how about this, right? He made a movie about Saudi special forces having to rescue Tyson Fury on the day that he had to fight Francis Ngannou. Now, can you imagine? They created a whole entire storyline revolving around this fight. And by the way, even in that movie with the special forces guys in Saudi that were rescuing Tyson Fury from bad guys or terrorists or kidnappers, they added the whole entire fight into the whole scene. So in other words, that whole entire story was immersed into the day of that fight, almost in a way to kind of give Tyson Fury an excuse like, hey, you know what? You didn't do too good in that fight because you got kidnapped by a bunch of terrorists. But on any regard, that's the main story here, is that Turki El-Sheikh is out to take over boxing. Dana White is trying to put himself in that door, and he's trying to expand his business way beyond mixed martial arts, way beyond slap fighting, and way beyond just boxing and WWE, which is now affiliated with the UFC. So that is all that we have for you right now. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe, And I will see you guys in the next one, inshallah.
MMA needs if you want to find predictions, news, and everything that deals with MMA. Shout outs to Kyrie, Abu El-Kheer MMA, Sacramento, California represent.
That's right, Kyrie. I appreciate you, my nigga. You came in here, you was talking that shit. That's right, bro. Much love, Flo. I appreciate you for always stepping in, bro. Be safe out there. Man, my nigga Kyrie, my man Kyrie came through. He started talking that shit. Hey, here's the thing. Here's the thing. That nigga will whoop your fucking ass. You would think that nigga's all squared up and all that type of shit. Nigga come through and beat your fucking ass. Like, man, fuck you up. You will never see it coming. So for those of y'all